This award lets me know that.
Et toi, ça va très bien. Ni hao, hola, bienvenue, wan ying, bienvenidos, bienvenita, namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a Gemmological Storyteller. And each and every week, I get the unique opportunity to take you on an adventure. To places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and put them all together into a story. The whole history of mankind really revolves around gemstones and precious metals. So what I do is I take those gem stories and use them as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, to encourage people to take time to discover the value of their own stories, of who they are, of how they resonate with the light. Last week, we talked about the transformative powers of heat, pressure, and time. And I wanted to go a little deeper into that because I think it's really important for people to understand what I'm talking about, because it's really deep. It's really transformative. It's really empowering when you understand that. So we were talking about heat, and I talked about how all gemstones, or most gemstones, require some type of heat in order to create the chemical reactions, in order to get the process started. So we talked about heat. We also talked about pressure. I told you how many gemstones require hundreds of thousands of pounds of pressure to form, to create, to bring those elements all together. And then the last we talked, but today what we're going to talk about is time. Because time, when you think about, all gemstones require some type of time to become. Gemstones just one day there's nothing there, the next day there's time. And when you understand time, then you have to understand that it takes work. And that's what most people don't get. Most people don't really understand the work that it takes. They see the finished product and go, wow, ooh, that's so beautiful. And they don't understand how it all came to be. How that gemstone that they're looking at, that they so highly value and prize, came as a result of heat, pressure, and a whole lot of time. And when you put that together, it's called work. You have to work at it. You have to understand that it's part of the things you have to do. It's a process. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how we can take that time, how we can take the process of time to become who we want to be. And I guess it really hits me because I'm 63 years old, and which I can't really believe. I was thinking about it today as I was driving. It's like, wow, I am 63 years old. And I remember once upon a time that was just so long ago. That was so far ahead. I remember, I think I was maybe 15 years old and the Vietnam War was going on, and my teacher was talking about how, people get drafted. And I said, well, what age do you get drafted? And she said 18. And I was like, 18, please. I literally didn't even think the world was going to exist that many years ahead of time. It's just 3 more years, but it just seemed like it was forever. And now, 63 years later, I have to look at my life and go, wow, I'm here. I'm that. Every time I watch commercials now, I hear them now differently. It used to be a time where if you were between the age of X and X, I go, oh, that's not me. I'm not in that category. When I filled out that paperwork and it would say the different age categories you're in, now I realize that I'm at the bottom now. I'm in that 60 plus range. Commercials and advertisements and medications are like, is this for me? But what I want people to do is to think about and maybe appreciate just just the time that it took to create who you are, that wonderful person. Whether you think you're wonderful or not, you're wonderful to someone. Someone loves you. Someone thinks highly of you. Someone admires you. Someone has gotten to understand who you are. Someone has gotten to know your story. So what this is the gemmological appreciation of time. And I think when you begin to look at gemstones and see how gemstones develop, you get a higher appreciation of what that time is. You begin to see all the steps that you took to become who you are in many ways the same steps, the same processes that has to happen when you create a gemstone. So let's begin to look at that. Let's begin to examine what that looks like. Now, so we're talking about time, right? That's what we're going. We're talking about time, pressure, heat. We talk about but today we're going to talk about time. Now, when people talk about time, we're talking about being old, okay? Yeah, and every gemstone you get, let me go back. Every gemstone that you ever look at, really, you're talking about something that's old. All gemstones, all the gemstones that you've ever held in your hand are old and much, much older than you. I'm not talking about years older than you. I'm not talking about decades older than you. I'm talking about hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of years older than you are. And I guess that hit me after a while. As I was studying gemstones, I began to realize that this gemstone was here before I was even thought of. Before I was thought of, my mother's mother, and everybody, this gemstone was here. This gemstone was here before I came into the world. It's here now, and it will be still here years after I'm gone, decades, forever, for all intents and purposes. And when you think about that, I think it's a very freeing concept, at least in my mind, because it shows you what's possible. Gemstones show you what's possible, what you can do in your life. And it also shows you how much you have accomplished in the short amount of time that you've been here. We don't live as long as gemstones, but yet we get an opportunity in our lives and that whatever time that we have to do something amazing. So we talk about diamonds. People always talk about diamonds and how diamonds are forever. And we know that diamonds are not forever, but diamonds are around for a very, very long time. And so when you look at diamonds, every time you see a diamond, you're talking about something that has been around for billions of years, 2 to 3 billion years old. In fact, I read somewhere a long time ago that the youngest diamond that's possible, the youngest diamond is at least 600 million years old. Think about how old you are in comparison to that. In comparison to what you're holding or wearing in your fingers and your neck, whatever, that multi-million year or billion year gemstone is older than you. And it took that much time to put it together for all the pieces to come together, the right environment, the right temperature, the right heat, the right time. And I think you can make those extrapolations to your own self, to your own life, to the things that you want to create in your lifetime. Now, obviously, we don't have 2 to 3 billion years, And that, I guess, could be a depressing point of view. But let's take it in a different way. Let's look at what we can do in the time that we have, because it's like this with every gemstone. When you look at a diamond, you see something that's beautiful, but at the same time, I want you to understand that this diamond took billions of years to create. It took billions of years for all the chemicals to come together, or lack thereof. This is a flawless diamond. That means that this diamond is only made out of carbon. And so when you really think about it, you have to understand that of all the elements that's on Earth, wherever this diamond was created, this diamond had to be in a perfect environment. The ground, the minerals, the rocks that was around where this diamond was created had to just be carbon. The heat had to be perfect for this diamond to be created. The temperature, the pressure had to be perfect for this diamond to be created. And I told you that diamonds are found in the mantle of the earth, that when this diamond came up, all those conditions had to exist for that diamond to be created. So we always talk about diamonds. We know about diamonds. This is the Hope diamond. This is the blue diamond. So not only did you have all those conditions you had to have just a hint of boron in order to make that diamond blue. So you had to have the carbon, you had to have the heat, the pressure, you had to have the time. And then in that, before all those things came together, you had to have an element, boron in this case, to make that diamond become what it is. Now let's think about that for ourselves. We already know that we don't have time. We are in the 4 things that make a gemstone the gemstone. Remember, rarity, beauty, desirability, and durability. We as human beings are not as durable as a diamond. So we don't have that. We don't have that. We have rarity, we have beauty, we have desirability. Somebody wants you, but we don't have durability. We don't have durability, but that's okay, because within our species, within what we are, if you can live 60, 70, 80, 100 years old, it's possible. So that's where we compensate. And not to mention, we are made out of hundreds of more chemical compositions, thousands of different chemical compositions that far exceed anything that a diamond has. So it kind of evens out. So let's talk about another gemstone. Let's talk about a gemstone that's considered a semi-precious gemstone, amber. This is amber. This beautiful yellowish orange gemstone is amber. Those of you who have amber as your name, amber is a beautiful gemstone. We'll talk about amber by itself one day. But right now, I want you to think about this as amber. This is considered a semi-precious stone. But amber has been around for thousands of years. Amber is basically, those of you who don't know what amber is basically fossilized tree resin. It's sap. It's plants, prehistoric plants and animals. Well, plants, trees. It comes from the sap of a tree. And when you combine that sap, the tree, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, it becomes amber. Now, there's 2 types of amber in the world. There's 2 types of amber. There is and this is sap. This is what sap looks like. This is those of you who have amber thousands of years ago. This is what was dripping from a tree somewhere in the world. And there's 2 types of amber. There's Dominican Republic amber. This amber can be found in different places in the world, but the 2 most popular amber is found in Dominican Republic. So it has Dominican Republic amber, This is the Dominican Republic. Now, it's interesting when you talk about amber, Dominican Republic amber, since it's the same island, this is the island that Columbus discovered, Hispaniola. And on the other side is Haiti, which makes you wonder, is there Haiti? It got to be amber in Haiti, but when they speak about amber, they always speak about on the Dominican Republic side. So that's the right side, as you know. So there's Dominican Republic amber. That's what this looks like. It can be found in the Dominican Republic. And what's interesting about amber is in order for amber to qualify as amber, it has to be at least 20 million years old. I'll say that again. Dominican Republic amber is tree sap from trees from 20 million years ago that fossilized, that got hardened to become amber. 20 million years to become this. And if a bug or mosquito or some type of insect just happened to be in the amber, caught up in the amber, this is what you get. So this bug was flying around millions and millions of years ago, happened to land in the wrong place, and here this bug is. So this is Dominican Republic amber. Then there's a different kind of amber, also called, it's called Baltic amber. Baltic amber comes from the Baltic countries. Those countries, Latvia, Estonia, those are the Baltic, Russia, those are the Baltic countries, Finland. So that type of Baltic amber is found floating there because amber is light, so it floats. That's how they started finding amber. Just fishermen would catch amber in their nets. And amber, this is Baltic amber. It has a more reddish hue. It's a little bit more valuable in regards to the color. Now, Baltic amber has to be at least 40 million years old. Think about it. 40 million years it took to form what we call amber. So there's already, even though we live in a society where people who are older are not respected at the same level, think about if we were gemstones. If we were a gemstone and if amber qualifies at 20 to 40 million years, so those of us who are 60, 70, 80 years old, we should be more valuable because all the time that it took to create who we are today. And I just think that's just a different way to look at it, a different way to look at yourself. Yeah, I'm 63. Yes, I'm 63 years old. And I can sit there and look at how much life I may have left. It could be tomorrow. It could be years from now. But I think it's empowering when you start to say to yourself, what have you done? What have you done in the time that you've been here? What things had to come together? What elements? What heat and pressure, and more importantly, time did it take to create who you are? The being that you have become. Think about how many things you know how to do today that you didn't know 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Think about the person, the job that you have, the career that you have, where once upon a time that career was just a dream. You might have said it when you were a kid, Mommy, I want to be a doctor. Mommy, I want to be a nurse. Mommy, I want to be a teacher. Mommy, I want to help somebody. Daddy, I want to fix cars. But you're a little girl. It's okay. I want to fix cars, Daddy, because I like what you do. Think about all the things that you do, especially if you're up in age. Think about how once upon a time that was a dream. That was something that you knew that you had to go to school for. You knew it was going to take time. What this show is about today is appreciating the time, just the same way we appreciate the time that it takes to make a gemstone. Those of us who love amber, your amber, if it's authentic amber, I'm not talking about synthetic amber, which can be made in a lab, doesn't take that long, or something that's imitation, something that looks like amber, but it's not really amber. One of the ways you test for amber is you heat treat it, and amber burns, and you can smell it. But so if you have authentic amber, either Dominican Republic amber or Baltic amber, that amber is somewhere around the numbers for amber, the qualified amber, it has to be somewhere around 10 to 100 million years old. Baltic and Dominican Republic amber is either, well, Baltic is 40 million years old, Dominican Republic is at least 20 million years old. That's what we should begin to look at ourselves and understand the person that we are today only came as a result of time. The things that I know now, I teach school, as many of you know. I teach middle school, I teach high school. And when I was a kid, I was terrible at math. Math was just, I failed math like math was the grade, F was the grade to get. And now when I work with my students in subjects like algebra and trigonometry, I love helping them not just because I'm helping them, but I love helping them because I see how much I've grown. I see how to combine like terms, or how to figure out the side of a triangle, or what kind of triangle it is, or how to solve for X. Where once upon a time, that question would have terrified me. Now I'm like, okay, let's look at it. And even if I don't remember how to do it, I have learned enough to know how to get the answer. And that only came about as a result of time. Time is the reason why I was able to figure that out. Time is what I can do now today because of what has happened, the process of becoming who I am today. One of my students asked me, Professor Barry, how do you know so much stuff? And I tell him, it's not that I know so much stuff. I just know how to get the answer I've learned. And over time, you begin to see the same things over and over and over again. You begin to understand history. You begin to understand science. You begin to understand and read and practice things about gemstones and precious metals. You learn something new all the time. And as time passes, it becomes a part of who you are. If you're good at anything, the only way you get there is time. So my question is, if we understand that, if we could begin to understand that every gemstone that you've ever held in your hand is old, period. There's not a if, there's not a if it's real, it's old. It's been around for a while. It had to go through heat and pressure and lots of time. And that's the same process that all of us have to go through. This is amber. This is Baltic amber with that beautiful insect inside. 40 million years it took to create this. 40 million years. Time. It's just tree sap. Think about it. It's just tree sap. Something this beautiful. Something this beautiful came from something as basic and organic as tree sap. Just like the syrup, honey, is basically tree sap from a sugar maple tree. But millions and millions of years from now, it could become this. It just needs time. Time is the thing. And if we begin to start looking at time in a different way, I believe that you can become excited about your life. You can become excited in just looking at what you've done with the time that you had. And if you're not satisfied with the time that with what you've done with the time that you've had, then we, unlike Gemstones, we have a chance to do something about it. We have an opportunity to add that ingredient, add that element that will make us what we want to be. We add that element, and heat, pressure, and time is the way we get there. Let's look at it. Let's look at something else. You get to be you. You become. That's the lesson that we can learn. You become a gemstone. You become the gemstone that you want to be when you put time into it. And when I started thinking about that, I was just like, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If it takes this long for a gemstone to produce, to become, and it's just sitting in the ground until someone finds it. How is that any different than us? How is that any different than that job that you're applying for? There's 8 billion people on the planet. I'm not saying 8 billion people are going for the job you want, but we know, those of us, many of us who have applied for jobs, we had to compete. We had to go against someone else, where their skill set and our skill set was different, and we had to put ourselves together. We had to present ourselves in such a way where people saw what made us different, what made us rare, what made us beautiful, what was our desirability, what made us special, what makes us special. What is our durability? Are you taking care of yourself? No, we don't have the durability that a gemstone does, but we can have add more things to our lives by, in this case, removing some of the elements that we put in our bodies, the sugars, the fats, all the different things that we know we shouldn't be doing. That's how you factor in the durability. Let's look at something else. Emeralds. We talked about emeralds. This is May. This is May. This is the month. And if you like emeralds, emerald is your stone. You have to understand that stone on your ears or on your neck, on your fingers, are at least 2,546 million years old. I said that last week, and a couple people sent me a text about it, and they said, for real, 2,546 million years old, just to form. That's how long it took, the process. When you hold that, the moment you dug that stone out of the ground, wherever you were, that gemstone has been sitting in the ground for millions, hundreds of thousands of millions of years. That's how long it's been there before we found it. Think about it. 2,546 million years. That's a long way from 50. That's a long way from 60. That's a long way from 70. Whatever age you are, that's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter how old you are. A gemstone is older than you. What can we learn from that? What can we glean from that concept or understanding? If it took that long for a gemstone to process, wow, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm a young man. I'm a baby. I'm nothing in comparison to a gemstone. That's what it took to make that. That's what it took to create that. And what is it? Again, and then we talk about time, but you have to understand that all the parts have to come together. The pieces have to come together. You have to have aluminum. You have to have beryllium. You have to have silicate, which is sand. Now, aluminum is pretty ubiquitous. Aluminum can be found a lot of places. Silica, which is sand, can be found everywhere. But beryllium, for those three things to come together, that's unique in and of itself. That's why emeralds are rare, because you don't have that combination coming together. Step back and look at it for yourself. Think about the combinations that you've put together. Your father could do this. Your mother used to do this. Your parents sent you to this school. You studied this class because you just felt like this class was something. You wanted to learn Chinese or Spanish because you wanted to learn carpentry. I think about that movie, my Uncle Vinny, my cousin Vinny, and the part that Marissa Tomei played when that lawyer asked her about the car, and the way she so beautifully broke down all the elements of why that car couldn't be that car. Why? Because she said when she was a girl, she worked with her father, and she had brothers, and she learned from them to the point where she could just sit there and absolutely confidently describe why that car could not make those tracks. And whether you knew about cars or not, you were just enthralled by just the fact that she could just roll out that information like that. That took time to do. All those elements had to come together. Her father, the car, the shop, the whatever allowed her to have that type of space in her life to learn those things over and over and over again. Well, when that moment came, she was able to just say, Your Honor, that car cannot be, those tracks could not be made by that car. It's impossible. So if you're going to make an emerald, you have to have aluminum and beryllium and silicate together, and you have to add that one ingredient, chromium. What is your chromium? What is your chromium in your life to make you, that's how an emerald becomes green. Chromium, here it is right here on the periodic table. Remember, I keep telling you that everything in the universe is on this periodic table, 118 elements. Here's chromium right here, right between vanadium and magnesium. Or manganese, sorry, manganese. So you had to have aluminum, you had to have silicate, you had to have beryllium, and then you just have to have a hint of chromium. What is chromium? What is your chromium? What was that? What was the name of that school? What was the name of the uncle or that coach or that teacher or your parent or your brother or someone, a friend, someone directed you. Someone was that ingredient. Someone was that chromium for you to become who you became today. And it took time. Chromium, that's chromium. There you go, basic. Atomic number 24 means that 24 atoms, 24 proteins. I'm sorry, proteins, 24 protons. To make that. To make that beautiful emerald, that's what it took. I want you to think about that for a second. And we'll go into further when you come back from the other side. Here's the gem bit. There's a thing in gemology called refractive index. That's the study of how much a gemstone will bend white light into the different colors. And garnet has the highest refractive index of any colored gemstone except for a diamond. A diamond's refractive index is about 2.4, whereas a garnet, especially a demantoid garnet, has a refractive index of 1.88. which gives garnet a wonderful brilliance. To me, a garnet is better. A savorite garnet is even better than an emerald. Discover the value of your stone. All right, we're back. So look at that. Again, how long? 2,546 million years. If you have an emerald, and this is a natural emerald, you can tell by the inclusions. That's how long it took to create that ring, that necklace, that bracelet that you wear, that pendant that you have on. So think about it. You have gold that comes from space. Gold comes from space from the beginning of the universe. Then you have a diamond that is at least 600 million years old. And then, of course, you have an emerald that's 2,546 million years old. Everything about that piece of jewelry is old. The only thing young in that, somebody wearing that, the only thing is young is the person that's wearing that. What can you do with that when you really understand that? Not even talking about the metaphysics of it, just the basics, just the facts. Just the facts. Many of us don't appreciate the time that it took for us to become who we are. We don't, because we just did it. We're living our lives every day, and we don't. And then on the other end, we act like we're going to live forever, and we know we're not. This piece of jewelry, if it's sitting in someone's box, if it's cared for, if not, burnt or anything like that, that piece of jewelry will look like that thousands of years from now. In the year 3024, that piece of jewelry will look just like that. We won't be. So what can we do with the time? What can we do with the time? Many of us this is who we are. We are rare. We are beautiful. We are durable. We take care of ourselves. We are desirable. Our families love us. Our students love us. Our patients love us. Our customers and clients love us. We make food. We're farmers. So there's people all over the countries, all over the world that eats the products that we have put together. What have you done with your time? And we have control over it. In an emerald, any gemstone is just happenstance. It just happened. The universe, the force, God comes together, and those scenarios had to come together to become aluminum, beryllium, silicate with a hint of chromium over millions of years to create that. We don't have that time, but we can still take the same process to become the gemstones that we want to become. Now, what happens if you don't? Some of you are saying, well, what happens if you don't have that secret ingredient? What happens? It's a good question, fair question. What happens if you don't have chromium, if you don't have that secret sauce or that person or that school or that desire? What happens? No problem. This is what happens. This is aluminum, beryllium, silicate without chromium. It's called goshenite. It's called goshenite. If you have aluminum, beryllium, silicate without chromium, without that thing in it, that's what it looks like. Goshenite. It's a beryl without chromium. Think about it. We have control. We have control over what goes in it. We have control over the chromium, the thing that you put in it. We can control. We can be this. We could be this, just basic. You wouldn't even look at it. You wouldn't think nothing of it. Some of you are thinking it's quartz. Some of you are thinking it's a whole lot of other things. Some of you might just think it's a piece of just a piece of clear rock, crystal quartz, but it's not, it's a beryl. And if we take the time to add chromium in it, if you take the time, whatever, we are all human beings, but if you take the time to add that ingredient, that chromium, the chromium that works for you. If you want to become an airplane, if you want to become a pilot, then you got to go to pilot school. If you want to become a nurse, then you got to go to nursing school. If you want to become a better chef, then you either got to go to school or your mother taught you, your father taught you. And then once you have that, you have to have the pots and pans and the tools that you need. If you want to become a hairdresser, you need the tools. And all those things require time to become. We add the chromium to become this. That's the secret. That's the analogy that we make. Gemstones have no control over who they are. They're not living entities. They're just there. They're just what the universe shows us of what happens when on accident and what happens when it comes together. But now it also shows us what we can do with our time. That's why we don't have the same time, because we have control. We have control over what elements that we put into our molecular structure. And when I say molecular structure, I'm not talking about just the body. That's true, but I'm talking about the mind. That's what As a Man Thinketh talks about. Very soon, so altered has his mind, has her mind become. Because he dreams of better things. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. That's that element. That's the thing that we're adding in. Very soon, so altered has his, and wait, he utilizes all his spare time. Hello? He utilizes all his spare time and means, small though they are. That's what the process is, utilizing that time. And very soon, so altered has his mind become, has her mind become, that the workshop can no longer hold her. Meaning, she becomes something different. She becomes the emerald, or the ruby, or the sapphire, or whatever she wants to be. He wants to be whatever gemstone that people want to be. The process is right there. Gemstones show us the process. We have to add something to it. We got to work. We got to do the work. We have to add the heat. We have to add the pressure. And we certainly have to not only add the time, but give ourselves time to become who we want to be. And it's that time is different for everybody, just like every gemstone has a different way of producing, becoming. It's not one size fits all. And then you still have to factor in the fact that you have to factor in the concept that what may work a certain way for one type of gemstone doesn't necessarily work that way for every gemstone, because although it took that long for an emerald to produce, to become what an emerald is, and an emerald is brittle. An emerald has lots of inclusions in it that might work. That type of gemstone might work for some people, and some people doesn't. Just like the skill set that you need to become a firefighter is different than a skill set you would need to become, I don't know, a teacher, or I don't know, a salesperson, a taxi cab driver. So you have to be able to see the work that you have to put into it. And then at the same time, you have to give yourself time to become. Time. That's what it is. And I guess I realize it more now each and every day because I am 63 years old. I think differently now. I see the world differently now. The things that used to get me so upset now, I'm like, I mean, it's not that I don't care. It's just that you just go, yeah, okay, I got it. I figured it out. I got it. Time. The process. I appreciate the process now. Now I know if I want to lose weight, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a week. But I know that if I follow the process, then it will become. I love teaching because I see where I used to be. I see in the students this just the impatience of, oh, why can't I do it? I'm like, because you didn't learn it yet. You didn't learn it yet. And they look at me, I'm like, yeah, this just doesn't come. You have to learn it. You have to understand why you did it in the first place, why these things work together. You have to appreciate the process. It's not magic. It doesn't happen like it does on the movies and on radio and TV and songs. It doesn't just say, ooh, doesn't happen like that. You have to appreciate the process. And I think when you begin to appreciate that, the time that it takes, when you can already see how you're going to be and not only enjoying being there, the finish line, but enjoy the process, I think your life just changes. It's a different thing. It has a different meaning when you enjoy just going to work every day. And everybody doesn't have good jobs, but if you're fortunate enough to do what you do, and even if you don't like your job, enjoy the process because hopefully you're working towards the job that you really want. And understand that the job that you hate, I can't tell you how many jobs I hated. And I realized that those jobs were the jobs that helped me in what I'm doing today. I did a lot of telemarketing when I was in college. Oh my God, I worked for everybody, telemarketing. But telemarketing and speaking on the phone and talking to strangers helped me in so many different ways. I'm not, if I walked into a room of complete strangers, I'm worried for about 2 minutes, really, because I know from experience, from time, that I will find someone that we will vibe. We will just find each other. We will find something to talk about somewhere, male, female, somebody. Somebody is going to be on my wavelength. Even jobs that I have or days at school where when I first started teaching, it was hard. Like the student was going through whatever they were going through. Now I'm like, you done? Okay, all right. Now let's do this. I had one student who just was just bawling, just started crying, and I just looked at her and I let her do what she had to do. And she looked at me and she says, she looked at me because I think I didn't react. I just let her cry. And I told her, I said, girl, I understand. I totally understand. And she hates math. And I told her, I said, I understand. I cried every day. Every day. And she said, why don't you cry anymore? I said, because after a while, I figured out that I could do math. I just had to look at it a different way. I had to learn how to appreciate the process. That's why homework is fine. Let's talk about opal. Let's talk about opal. Opal is opal. This is opal. Beautiful stone. Opal happens to be my birthstone. Beautiful stone. The play of colors. Look at all the colors. And it's a completely different stone. An opal is just made out of hydrogenous silicon dioxide. You know what that's saying? That's basically saying water sand. That's what it's really saying. watery sand. The molecules, solid molecules, the beads of sand, that water is so small, 0.001 millimeters in diameter. That's what opal is. That's what opal is, sitting on basically a kind of a bed of water. Most opal came from a place where there used to be an ocean or a sea that dried up over the hundreds of thousands, of course, millions of years. And when that light goes through, it refracts the light, it splits the light. That didn't just happen yesterday. That took millions of years to become, millions of years to become what it is. Millions of years. I'm trying to move the screen a little bit here. Hold on a second. Millions of years it took for the opal to become. That small in diameter. Think about it. All those beads had to come together in a certain pattern. They had to come together in a certain pattern where that was possible. And then once that pattern was established, thousands of years, over time, it created an environment where light could shine through and be refracted. That took millions of years to do, to become that. Millions of years to become that. Where that used to exist, there was water. There was plenty of water. It was an ocean. It was a sea. To become. And that could not happen unless time took place, unless there was time. It couldn't happen unless there was time to become. So if opal is what you want to become, your version of opal in your life, where you want to be able to refract the light in your cooking, in your teaching, in your business, in your raising children, you want to be a entity, a soul where whatever you do in your life, that light comes inside of you and you refract the light. And that's what people see when they see you. You've become an opal. And the only way that happens is time. The only way that happens is time. That's all. Those are the ingredients. Silicon-rich water, the right temperature, the right pressure, millions and millions of years. And when we say millions and millions of years, what are we talking about? Time. That periodic table, that's who you are. That's who everybody watching this show is. You are on that table. Hundreds of combinations of the same elements that everything in the universe is made out of. We are made out of so many of these elements are part of who we are. Every gemstone is made up of an element. Every human being is made up of an element. So therefore, the same processes that take place in a gemstone has to take place in us. It's not a either or thing. Well, I'm a Democrat. It doesn't work like that for me. I'm a Republican. It doesn't work. I come from this country. It doesn't work like that. You're on the table. Whatever gemstone you like is on the table. And if you have heat, pressure, and lots of time, you can become something extraordinary. Time. And when you begin to understand how time works, how you could use time, oh man, everything just opens up. Even if you're 63 and you're like, okay, I'm not going to live to be, what I got. I don't know. Let's say 100. I want to be 88 years old. So I got 25 more years. Now, I could be depressed about that, or I could just say, man, I got 25 more years. What can I do in 25 years today? Where will I be in 25 years? And I know it works because I already gone through 63 years already. Appreciating time, just like a gemstone. Let's look at jade. Let's look at one more. Let's look at, just so you don't believe. Let's look at, no, actually, I got one more too. But let's look at jade. Here's jade. Here's jade. So sodium, aluminum, silicate. Same thing, sodium. You know, like the sodium and put it on the table, sodium. So jade has been around, known for 7,000 years. 7,000 years. There's two types of jade. There's jadeite and nephrite. The Chinese was using nephrite for thousands of years, and then they found jadeite. When I told you when the Spanish conquistadors came to Central America and saw the kind of jade that they had there, they lost their minds. Because in pre-Columbian America, jade had more value than gold. Yeah. 7,000 years they knew of it. It was jade is much older than that on a geological level, but they knew, mankind knew about it from the beginning. This is jade. This is what rough jade looks like. So if you walk past it, you wouldn't necessarily see what it is. But yet, this is what you can do with jade. Jade is nephrite is one of the toughest, if not the toughest material, meaning it can't just be easily broken. It has to be carved. It takes years and years and years to carve a piece like this. Years, time, even a simple bracelet, time to carve it because it's so tough. You can't make it. Time that it took to create it and to become jade, and time that it took to make it be something. Jade, time. Every time you're looking at a piece of jewelry from now on, understand that it's old, and what that piece of jewelry is showing you is what you can potentially do with your time. You can become this, or whatever version of this works for you. The common denominator is understanding time. Understanding that this took time to make. Someone had to see this. Someone had to imagine this. Someone had to look at the detail of it and say, I can do this. I can make little flowers on a vase, on a bowl. I can create it where there's even a little cupcake on the top. Someone cut this by hand. And it took them years and years and years and years of craftsmanship. And they probably learned it from somebody else, and they learned it from someone else. We're talking about thousands of years of craftsmanship to create something so elegantly beautiful. And when we understand that it has time, that it was all a matter of time, there's so many time and work, time, heat, pressure, all coming together. Time. It's liberating. It's liberating to me. It's liberating when you could just reverse time in a different way, when you could look at time in a different way. Let's look at one. It's not magic. It's not magic. Yes, it's in a book, but it's not magic because it's right there. Gemstones show us that. Let's look at something. Let's look at a gemstone that doesn't have that much time. 50 to 100 years. 50 to 100 years. Pearls. Pearls don't have that much time. If you keep a pearl, if you take care of a pearl, 50 to 100 years. Pearls, I told you what pearls are. Pearls are organic organisms. They come gemstones. Pearls come from living beings. Pearl comes from oysters. And I told you that pearls are not made from a grain of sand going into the oyster. No, pearls are made from from a parasite, from a bacterial infection that gets into the sex organs of the oyster. So basically, what this pearl came from a UTI. I need you to understand that this pearl, every natural pearl that you've, well, actually even synthetic, comes from basically a infection, or as far as synthetic, you planted something in the sex organs of the oyster. So every natural pearl that you've ever seen is basically coming from a UTI. And those of you who don't know what UTI is a urinary tract infection. There's every woman that's watching this right now is like, ooh, they're feeling the pain. But out of that pain, that oyster experience, out of that pain, something beautiful came out of it. Over time, from that pain, think about those of you who've had bladder infections and know the severe pain of that and what an oyster does, what nature has taught us to do, to cover it, to basically wrap it around into something, to dissipate the pain, to separate that infections invader that comes inside of us, and we wrap it into something different. There's so many of us know that, so many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Something that your mother, your father, someone did, your husband, your wife, something, that pain that you've experienced in your life. And some of us experience that pain in different ways, and some of us do exactly what pearls do. We cover it in love. We cover it in something else. We wrap it around in something we know the pain is there. We know what it is, but we cover it to make it into something different, to make it into something that works for us. And that takes time. It takes time to create that. There's so many of us, I know people, you know people, that when you talk to them, you say, what? You've experienced that? And yet they don't show any sign of that. And the only way they got there is time. We all heard the expression, time heals. Yeah, it does. It does. The things that I love now, and I've told you many, many times, I have a whole completely different relationship with my mother now at 63 years old than I did 50 years ago. Time. Time. That's what it took. That's what it takes. Time to become. We need heat. We need pressure. We need that thing that pushes us, that thing that drives us, and we need time. And when we do that, that's how, when we have that time, that's how we create that story. That's how those stories become created, because the time gave us time to create. Time gave us the opportunity to create those stories. Time gave us the chance to bring the elements that we need to have in our lives. Time gave us an opportunity to meet that person, to meet that element, that woman, that man, that teacher, that coach that taught us what we needed to do, what we needed to be. Every time I teach a class, I realize that what I am doing is giving my students an element that may help them become whatever they want to become. And we know, if you didn't know before, you know from watching the show each and every week, that once you have that story, that's where value comes. And once you understand that value, your life changes. And as I teach you each and every week, nothing has value without a story. Nothing. So I am the Gem Hunter. Gemmological appraisals and storytelling services, art, science, history, magic. Because what I want you to get out of this show each and every week is that whatever you want to do requires time. They become that. And when you see that for yourself, when you begin to appreciate that in your life becomes so much more beautiful because you see it in a gemstone. You begin to understand what it takes to make a gemstone. You begin to understand the facets and the colors and all the things that had to come together to become that beautiful gemstone that you are wearing. And those same processes can be had by you if you give yourself that time. So I hope you got something out of this today. I'm excited. Just as I was telling you about it, I was excited about just the time that I've already spent in my life and the time that I can look forward to having, whatever time that may be. I'm going to make sure that that time is well spent, and I hope and pray for the same for you. So until next week, we're going to have a guest next week and start bringing us some guests. This person is phenomenal. I don't even want to give you a hint. This person is phenomenal. And I'm so happy that we're finally going to have them together, get together and talk about, he's an artist. He's a photographer. He travels. I went to school with him, high school, way back, Alan Lloyd, and we're going to bring him on next week. But until then, I want you to really just take the time to see how far you've come. Take the time to think about all the things that you went through in your life to become who you are today. And realize that none of it could have happened if you didn't have that time. And if you're breathing, and if you're healthy, and you're fortunate enough to just still be able to do things in your life, then that means that the universe, that God has given you a chance to still add more things, more elements to who you are, to become the gemstone that you want to be. So appreciate the time that you have, the time that you've spent, the time that you hopefully will have in your life. And until next week, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemmological storyteller. And what I want to say to you is take that time to discover the value of your own stories. So until next week, au revoir, apita, see you later, au revoir.